Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet, read them for your entertainment. Now, the algorithm has been a bit mean to me recently, so if you could like, subscribe, and do all the YouTube stuff, including comments, it would be very much appreciated, just to remind the algorithm that this channel is still kicking. Anyways, on to the story. Origins by MarlynnOfMany. Two figures approached a third for a conversation of momentous importance. Of the two, neither moved easily on the planet's gravity, but both did their utmost to proceed with decorum. One was tall and slender, with skin the color of the void and eyes as wide as forever. Its fingers were spindly and delicate. Its mouth was pursed in a thin line. It moved slowly to disguise the strain of the world on its bones. The other was short and sturdy, as strong as a hyperdrive, with fur as pale as the starlight and teeth as sharp as the sun. It clenched its jaw. It moved slowly, so it didn't stumble and spring upwards to where the planet's pull was even less. The third was a native of this world, in its own form much the middle ground between the two, and it watched their approach with unabashed joy. "Hello!" the native said, matching the mouth sound with mind sound appropriate to the civilized race. "Welcome, can you understand me?" The two visitors confirmed that they did, and they came with questions. "Well, sure, if I can ask some too," the native replied with a smile. "What is life like out there in the stars?" The tall one spoke first.
"Life is rebuilding,"
it said carefully, conserving its breath.
"War destroyed the network, our connections and travel, and many generations have gone into regaining what we once had."
The short one stood very still as it spoke.
Some of us make strides faster than others."
The tall one gave it a sharp enough look to cut the ship's hull, but the short one stared ahead at the native, ignoring it. "Wow, so it's true," the native said, gesturing vaguely upward. "They say there were some supernovas in every part of the sky ages ago. Then the cosmos went silent." It lowered its arms, then spread them in welcome. "I'm so glad you've come." The tall one positioned its hands in a complicated shape that said that it had a delicate matter to discuss. The only people to use that exact handshape were those on its own world, but its tone was hard to miss now.
"We followed the traces of the old civilization that we could find," it said. "Old records are gone, but new technologies are here." "And so are we," interrupted the short one. "And so are you. Tell us, how are your records of the past?"
"I think you've got it pretty well figured out," the native said. "We did lose some things in our own upheaval. About the time we ran out of resources for space travel. But the idea of leaving the planet has been unfashionable since then. Round upon, sin-filled even, just not done. But that doesn't mean that we will hold anything against you guys." The native raised its hands in a hurried reassurance. "You can travel all you want. We're just focusing on the planet instead of space now. We've fixed a lot of things, and I tell you, we're still exploring the sea." The two visitors blinked politely, processing the avalanche of words. The tall one opened its mouth to say something, but the short one got there first.
"Can you tell us which of our races is older?"
it asked, and therefore the best remained unspoken. The native splayed out its hands briefly. "Not off the top of my head," it said. "We'd have to check those records." The tall visitor made a dismissive gesture and spoke in a tone meant to clarify.
"Both of our cultures trace our origins to this region."
It gave a short one another sharp look.
"There has been some competition."
"I bet there has," the native said, with a sympathetic shake of its head. Then it brightened. "Hey, did you ever meet any real aliens?" Dumbstruck expressions were all that the two visitors would come up with for a long moment.
"Real aliens?"
the tall one asked. "Yeah, you know," the native said, moving a finger back and forth between the three of them. "Not based on humans." When silence greeted it again, it continued. "Anything that is not a humanoid shape, 2 arms, 2 legs, a face, something like this." It waved a hand around its head.
"That is the universal constant for intelligent life,"
the tall one said, its eyes wider than before.
"The only logical form that it could take."
"Oh, dang! Guess not," the native said.
What do you mean? The short one barked. Based on humans?
Now it was the native's turn to look surprised. But you know you came from here. You just said. The short one flung his arms sideways and nearly toppled over.
Somewhere around here, yes, but obviously only one of us descended from you. We're too different.
Well, yeah, that's the genus splicing, the native said, looking from one to the other. The whole thing around colonizing other worlds. We had to change somehow to better fit the different environments. Like you're obviously from a heavy gravity world, right? Probably a cold one, pale fur, you know. The short visitor nodded in shock, nearly unbalancing again. And you're either a tiny planet with a low gravity or a gas cloud with barely any at all. Either the planet is hotter than this one, or the gas cloud doesn't have much ozone to filter out the sun's radiation. Dark skin, we have a whole rainbow here.
The tall visitor nodded as well, but the native kept talking.
Now, I haven't read up on the subject since school, but I remember there was a bunch more. One had scales. Are they still around?
Yes, the tall visitor admitted. They have the fastest ships of us all.
The native clapped his hands together. Oh, good for them. It stepped forward, holding out a hand to each visitor. Please come meet everybody. They'll be so happy to see you. Welcome home.
The tall visitor and the short one looked at the hand spread in front of it. 5 fingers, just like their own, with skin of a light brown. Family. Slowly and wordlessly, they both reached out to clasp the hands. They looked at each other briefly, sharing a moment of unnameable emotions and whirling thoughts. What would they say to their people back home? But that was a problem for later. The native was urging them forward, leading the way towards civilization, where their futures and their shared past awaited. End of story. Story number 2. The Gunrunner, written by WegianWarrior. Sir Alttissi looked up in disbelief towards his door. Towards where his door had been until a second ago, he corrected himself. A Terran wearing a long coat stepped over the smouldering remains, casually pointing a Mark V flechette pistol at him. Behind him, 2 Terran Espatiers in combat armor, holding heavy assault rifles, filed in and scanned the room. Despite himself, Sir briefly pondered how much those weapons could have been sold for on the black market.
Sir Alttissi,
the leading Terran asked, bringing Sir back to the here and now. Sir ducked his head low. Yes? Fidgeting, Sir thought of the hidden panel behind him and the merchandise it concealed. If there had only been one Terran, he might have had a chance.
Gunrunner, smuggler, wanted on 5 worlds so far. Supplier to several low-life organizations.
We will not answer that question.
You don't have to. Consider your current contracts voided.
We want, Sir said as he forked his tongue slid over his lips, a lawyer.
No, the Terran replied. You do not.
We see. We ask if you can make it quick and painless in that case.
Oh, you're in it for the long haul, sir, but the amount of suffering is up to you, and please step away from that hidden compartment. We don't want any accidents.
Sir thought hard as he took 3 steps sideways. The panel should be invisible. But Terrans. If we cooperate, Sir said after a couple of seconds, can we at least request which prison planet?
You're not going to no prison, the Terran stated as he slipped his handgun into a hidden holster. You're coming with us.
Sir glanced at himself as he recalled the rumors of Terran justice, then glanced towards the hidden panel. If he made a dash, he would likely be gunned down before he reached it. It might be a preferable option.
Do not try anything dramatic, the Terran said as he stepped between Sir and the panel. Just consider this a rather definitive way of gaining a new employer.
Sir blinked, looked at himself, then looked at the Terrans. The Terrans had their weapons. You want us to work for you?
Yes, you do not get a choice.
Sir blinked again and stared at the Espatier's heavy armor and rifles in disbelief. But Terran weapons are the most sought after in the sector. Why would you need a small-scale gunrunner? We cannot get you anything better.
The Terran drew his lips up, fangs showing in the light that came through the demolished door. We know! That's why we want you to, how do I phrase this, get our weapons to the people we want to have them and not the ones who can pay for them. End of story.
I would just quickly like to thank the T5 peeps. Dragon Soup, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Sans the Skeleton, Lightjock, Dragzoon WRE, and Lord Azrakal. Thank you very much.